Welcome to Collaborate, the podcast that's reshaping real estate success. Whether you're a new agent striving for your first big win or a seasoned producer ready to break into the top 1%, Collaborate is your gateway to elite strategies, global networks, and industry-changing insights. Each episode delivers actionable advice straight from the top 1% of real estate professionals worldwide. This is where you learn the tools, tactics, and high-level techniques you need to scale your business and unlock financial freedom. Don't just survive, thrive. I'm your host, Trevor Bigg, three-time Icon Award winner with over $100 million in sales volume as a solo agent. And if you haven't been invited to the show yet, get your numbers up because this is a space reserved for the elite. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Collaborate. This is the premier podcast for ambitious agents committed to scaling their business. I'm your host, Trevor Bigg, and today we are joined by not just one of Toronto's best, but one of the country's top agents. She's been awarded top team within eXp Realty, top agent within eXp Realty. She's among the top 7 agents in the entire Toronto Real Estate Board, which is, I did my research, there's over 26,000 agents that you're competing with, which is absolutely insane.
77,000.
Okay.
26,000 was a while ago. Yeah.
4-time Icon Award winner, Miss Jennifer Jones. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Trevor. I'm super excited to be here. But yeah, the truth is that anyone can do what I've done, right? It's actually a simple thing once you understand that it is exactly what you and I were talking about. It's a people business. It's all about relationship and understanding people at a higher level than just, that old saying, like, treat other people the way they want, or how do we say it? Treat other people the way you want to be treated, right? Oh, yeah.
That's what I tell my 3 kids all the time.
Right. But the higher level of it is treat other people the way they want to be treated, right?
Yep.
So just because we like to be communicated with in a certain way, it doesn't mean that they do, right? So fully understanding someone else and the little nuances and the little tips that people give you through what they're saying and the way that they're moving and acting, that kind of lets you know who they are.
Well, I think that's so true. And I think too many agents get hyper-focused on the business side of things and completely forget the personal side of things. And yes, you got to separate business and personal, but I mean, real estate is a personal business. That is what it is.
100%.
Okay, before we get into it too much, if you don't mind, give us a little bit of a background to your success, how long you've been in the game, what got you started, and I think most importantly, what made you decide to do real estate in probably the most competitive city in the entire country?
So I've been in real estate since 2014, so that's 10 years, 10 and a half years now.
Not that long.
So I got into it because my husband we were buying properties, renovating and reselling, right?
Yep.
So you look at what the real estate agent's making, you look at the work that you're doing. So you're doing the work, you're prepping the property. In a lot of cases, like selling the properties we were selling, it was like those additional videos that we'd make and leave the laptop out with like press me that would show the boat video going out to the main lake, like all those extra things that were getting the property sold. And I looked at that and said, okay, well, this is silly. Like, I'm basically selling it. I might as well just get licensed.
Sure.
So that's what I ended up doing. So the intention was never actually to sell for anyone else. But just the first year, people started asking me that we knew. And first year I made $150,000. And I was also doing foster care. My husband and I were taking care of children along the way.
Busy.
But then I looked at it and went, wow, $150,000 without trying. That's interesting, right?
Very.
Imagine what I could do in the world if I was intentional about this. So I said, okay, well, I'll make $500,000 next year. So again, just put the intention out there, put my head down, went back to work the way I do. And
Yep.
This is like doing open houses and taking foster kids with me. So I'd be running open houses, playing games in between people coming in, and then I'd hand them an iPad when I had someone in there, right? Give them the technology.
Yep.
to occupy them. So did that. And then after that second year, I said, wow, I made over $500,000. That's amazing. What would stop me from making over $1 million, right?
Yeah.
So it became like this experiment of,
how far can I take this?
How big can I go? right?
Yeah.
So I said, all right, I'm going to make over $1 million next year. So same thing, went to work, but I also at that point started working on manifesting as well. So I would now drive the lakefront. So I would drive, we had this lakefront area, and you have to remember, coming in as a new realtor, I came into this area, right? Didn't know anyone, and there was 3 dominant realtors in that town that had been there for almost 30 years, right?
Yep.
So I come in, I don't know anyone, and I'm having people over to the house, like inviting all the neighbors over, just getting to know people, figuring out what they do for a living, figuring out how to help them do well, not worrying about how I'm going to do well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So by putting the focus on them, I was naturally, through law of reciprocity, gaining business. Okay.
Yep.
But then I would drive the lakefront. So it's 30 minutes one way along the lake, 30 minutes back the other way. So I do it every morning, 6 o'clock in the morning one way, 6 o'clock in the morning the other way, drinking my Tim Hortons coffee, right?
Yep.
And I would declare, I'm so grateful all these buyers and sellers are mine. I'm so grateful all these buyers and sellers are mine. And the next year you drove along the lake and they were almost all mine. Almost every single sign was mine. Almost every single buyer along that lakefront was mine. And I made 1.1 million gross commission income on my own as an individual agent.
And that's year 3, is that correct?
That's year 3, yeah.
Okay.
So at that point, I'm like, okay, that was crazy. Crazy in the sense that I was maxed out, right?
Yep. Yep.
So when you're doing that as an individual, and
Because at this point, you're still solo.
right, and at the end of my second year, I'd hired an administrator, but she had no experience whatsoever in real estate. So I brought her in. She's super smart, God love her. She's still with us, but on mat leave right now, Sarah Park. I brought her in and I trained her, sitting with her for about 2 weeks. And then I said, okay, you're good. And I just left her.
Oh.
And I would just like send her things, call her. We set up an office. I would just fly by, drop stuff off. And she figured it out. Right. So she would call me, hey, what about this? And I'd say, oh, I don't know, just call the town or Google it. Right. Like
Yep.
and she
Figure it out.
literally, she learned how to mind melt me and literally became my second brain. It's crazy. So I believe she is what helped take me from that 500,000 to that million. Without
Yep.
her, it would have been incredibly difficult to do, right? So, and that's one thing I would say, with the right person assisting you, you can double your business, right? That wasn't a realtor that I brought in. That was just an incredibly smart, dedicated, amazing administrator, right? Didn't have to be someone trained in real estate, just someone that was committed to doing and learning everything, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And then from there it became, oh my gosh, I can't provide this high level of service that I've been providing anymore to clients. I'm starting to drop the ball.
Yep.
And that's where that need for a team came. So started a team, totally screwed up. First year, my splits were way too generous, right?
Yep.
I was all about giving because that's who I am.
Yep.
And we made a ton of money as a team. And I lost 150,000 my first year as a team. Good job, Jen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Good eye opener.
Right? So I had to humbly go back to everyone, sit them down around the table and say, guys, I am so sorry. I have royally screwed up. And you all made money. Congratulations. I lost 150,000. So I can't operate the team like this, right?
Yep.
I do have to change the splits. This is what it's going to be. And everyone stayed, except I think we had one person go, which is okay,
I was
right?
going to say, I was going to ask how your retention was after that.
Yeah. Well, I think what you start to realize, especially now after 7 years of running teams, 7.5 years, the people who are meant to be with you will stay. The people who are meant to go will go. But the blessing of EXP has been for me that I can have people that come and join into the team option 1, right? So they come, they join EXP as new agents. I bring them into option 1, they join the team, they go through our boot camp. We have a system and a process from taking them from new agents right up. So we had 4 agents last year in the down market that took home over 300,000 gross commission income. Okay.
Wow.
So we can take them from there, and then we say, look, if you want to, and this would be, if I disc profile them, that's my D. Okay. My
Yep.
high Ds that come in there, I know what they want, right? They want to build their own. That's cool, right? I
Oh,
love
yeah.
those people. They're amazing listing agents. So I take them and say, when you get to a point that you want to do this on your own, we can move you to option 2. So what that means is that now you move over here, you're still under a team split, right? So
Yep.
you're paying less to the brokerage, but now you're building your brand, but we'll still do your paperwork, your marketing for you, and we're taking 25%, right? We'll put your signs up, we do your photography, and you still get to participate in everything here and continue learning. Then we move you to option 3 when you're on your own. When you're ready to icon, you move to 3. So now you're on your own, you're paying 16,000, you're under your own brand, you can still have VA uses. But the difference is with the EXP model for us, instead of being where you bring up an agent, when someone leaves your team, they feel uncomfortable because you're no longer really benefiting, right? So
Yep.
most team leads will make them feel uncomfortable, right? It's like they bake them a cake that says you are now dead to me, right? And send it,
Yep.
right? So that team member typically leaves and goes to another brokerage. They don't even stay in the same brokerage, right?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, it's very common. So the difference is that now we can bring them on and show them the pathway of mentoring and having them grow with us. They don't have to leave, right? So it's creating a different sort of energy, and it's about not bringing people in and locking the doors and not letting them out, but bringing them in and helping them soar and become everything they're meant to be, right?
Creating a
So
space where
just
rather than there's competition, there's now collaboration, where instead of two people competing on top of each other, there's two people leveling up alongside each other. You know what I mean? And it's
right.
it's now no longer competition, but collaboration. And now everybody's growing rather than just one or two people.
Exactly. And it's way more fun, right?
Yeah.
That's the So it's like friendly competition. There's so many amazing, incredible top producers that I have friendly competition with, right?
Yep.
It's just
Healthy
fun. It's
competition.
meant to be that way, right?
Yep.
You just enjoy jabbing each other and like, like, look where I am now. You're gonna have to come get me,
And then and a
right? And
boo
vice
boo.
versa. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just good.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that gives us a fantastic foundation on how you became such an expert on the topics that we're going to be hitting today, because today's topics are, I think, the areas of real estate that many agents overlook. First, I want
Yes.
to talk about communication, more specifically NLP, and how this approach can basically put you in the driver's seat of almost any situation. And now, for those who are listening who have no idea what NLP is, stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. It's a psychological approach explaining the relationships between language, thought patterns, and behavior. Jennifer, can you give us your insights on NLP, and how this approach can maybe help agents create a better connection with their clients?
Right. So NLP, without getting into the whole like science behind it, okay, and
Yep.
how who founded it and all these things, which I could do, but we won't go there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
boring. Let's get into the practical uses of it and why it works. So, the idea of NLP is that people like people who are like themselves, right?
Yep.
So, they like people who are like them, and that's who they're going to trust first, right? So if
Yep.
you had a realtor come in to potentially list your property and they come in and they're like you, so, they talk pretty quick, they're to the point, right?
Yep.
You're going to feel more comfortable with that person, right? And you're more likely to work with them, right?
Almost like a mirroring technique.
Yeah, but the truth is that some people don't adjust because they don't understand this. So the
Yep.
idea is that people like people who are like themselves. They trust that person. They're more likely to work with that person, but they also have a desire to be around people where it's someone who they aspire to be, right?
Yes.
So there's kind of like a higher level to just being with people that are like them. So the idea would be, all right, I'm going into a listing appointment. So I'm going to research that person prior to going out, right? I'm going to look at who is this person. I'm going to look up them on social. I'm looking on LinkedIn. I'm checking to see, okay, because disc ties into this too, but I'll go into that in a
That's
sec.
coming up next.
So
Don't go too far ahead of yourself.
yeah. So, okay. So for NLP, I'm going to look at what kind of person this is. All right. So if they're always showing up in suits, for example,
Yep.
and all their social media, if they're very sharply dressed, they're driving luxury cars, that's who they are, then I'm going to go and show up like that. Okay. To start with. If they're more like they could be worth $1 billion, but if everything that they're showing up as in their social media and even their work life is a t-shirt, a pair of jeans, and they're driving a pickup truck, right?
Yep.
I'm going to mirror and match more of that type of wardrobe, and I'm probably going to take my husband's Chevy. Okay.
Yep.
So the idea is like, and top agents know this. So they'll actually, there's a lot of them, they'll even have access to 2 different vehicles to go out.
Yep.
Right. And my lesson with this was going out to list. It was a very high-end lakefront property, and we had the foster kids at the time. So I needed like a lot of seating, okay, in the vehicle. So I had a Buick Enclave. It was a nice SUV. So I pulled up in front of the house. I walked to the front door, and David, the lawyer, comes to the front door, and he's standing there chatting with me. He looks out past me like this, and he looks at me and he goes, "Jen, wrong vehicle for this area," right? He's just to the point,
Yeah.
right? So I knew that, okay? I knew that. I was trying to reject it, but the truth is, it's just a reality, okay? It's just a reality. So it's like you want to sell luxury, you need to be luxury. That's just the truth. You want to sell average price blue collar properties, that's the way you need to show up. You have a billionaire that he is a blue collar kind of guy. That's the person that you need to be when you show up. So this is part of NLP. So the idea is now you're mirror and matching in terms of your clothing and how you're presenting, showing up at the door. So you come up to the door. The way that they greet you, right, is the way that you're greeting back. So if this person's high energy, how would you respond?
High energy.
High energy, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, they're like, "Hey, how are you?" Right? It's like, "Hey, how are you?"
Give it right
Absolutely,
back.
right?
Yeah.
Right. You give it right back. Now, if they come to the door and they're super serious, then you're going to bring it down a notch, right? It's like you're going to come down to where they are. If they're a fast talker, you're going to speed up your speech.
Yep.
And the question I always ask everyone is, listen, if you're a fast talker and you're talking to a slow talker, right?
Yep.
What are you really thinking about them if you're honest?
If you're a fast
right?
talker, talking to a slow talker. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I understand.
Yeah. So the truth is, a fast talker believes a slow talker might be a little slow,
Because of
right?
how they're talking.
Yeah, because they're not thinking that quick, apparently, because the speech isn't coming out that quickly, right?
Yep.
And then flip side is a slow talker believes a fast talker is what?
Well, lots of times in my experience, if you're talking too fast or if I think somebody's spewing off things a little too quick, I'm assuming anyways that they're maybe not listening, maybe just taking things a little too quick and not taking the time to actually think about what I've had to say.
That's right. So they could be, so typically it's like, oh, they're too salesy or they're a squirrel, right? It's like
Yep.
ADHD, right? They're not careful. So you have to be able to mirror and match and meet that client where they're at, even with volume. So the volume of your speech. So if they're speaking loud, then speak loud. If they're speaking softly, then bring your voice down, right? Maybe they have a hearing problem. Maybe that's why they're speaking loudly. And that would be a reason to also match them. Then it goes further than that. So as you're going through their home and you've said, take me on a tour of your home and you're taking your notes as you go through, it's pointing out a few things that you have in common with this person, right? That's part of NLP. So it's like, oh, hey, you have a dog. I have a dog, right?
Yep.
Oh, you have those kids. I have a son as well, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Hawaii. You were in Hawaii. That is so cool. When did you go to Hawaii,
Like you
right?
see a big fish on the wall. Oh, I also love fishing, you know?
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you don't want to overdo it, but you definitely need to have a couple of things in common that you're connecting on, saying, hey, we're the same, right? We're the same. Now, something I picked up earlier on, I was always so nervous going into the beginning, right? Because it's
Yep.
like, you don't know. Like I didn't have training. Keller Williams and my brokerage at that time, our particular market center, had no training, right?
Yep.
So I knew nothing. I was going into appointments like absolutely like a train wreck. Okay.
Practicing on your clients.
Yeah, I was practicing on my clients. Exactly. So going into appointments, like you're just like, yeah, shooting in the dark.
Yep.
So I feel like going into these appointments, being nervous, I would go to shake their hand and then I would realize, oh my gosh, their palm is wet. They're nervous. So I came to realize that a lot of the time, the client was actually more nervous than I was at having me in,
Yep.
because I guess I'm going into their personal space, right? I'm seeing how they live. They're giving me a window into their personal, like their personal life, their relationship, their money, everything,
And they
right?
don't know you.
No, they don't know me. Exactly. So
Yep.
that's when you start to realize, okay, really, we should be coming in with more confidence, right? And taking that bull by the horns. We need to help put them at ease. That becomes our job. Our job is to go in and help set them at ease. So having them talk about things that they're comfortable with, right? And
Yep.
having that commonality is going to help kind of ease some of the tension. The other one of the higher resonating energy is also humor, right? So if you can figure out sort of what their humor is, like make a dry joke, do they get it? A lot of people don't get my sense of humor, right? I make dry jokes and they look at me like I have three heads. I get that. So then I go, okay, they don't get that humor. And I may still continue to make those jokes because they're funny to me, but nobody else. So it's like,
Right.
right? You've got to be able to raise that energy, right? And then remembering, okay, if they're really shy, and their palms were wet, they're stressed, right? They're
Yep.
nervous, then also I have to be extra warm, right?
Yep.
So the highest paid people in the world show warmth and competence, okay? It's those two factors. They're warm and they're competent. So what I always say to our team is, look, guys, you need to break your face, right?
Yep.
The truth is, even on social media, you see people posing with their face. Okay, they pose,
They do the
right?
the thing. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
they're very serious and they're like, I'm really hot
All
because I'm sick.
business. Yeah.
Okay, so no, your face will not crack permanently. I promise.
Yeah.
You must break your face. Okay. You have to smile and appear warm. So the idea is you have to smile bigger than what is comfortable for you. And it is going to feel uncomfortable. For most people, go and get a mirror and practice smiling. Practice on your phone, have a mirror with you. And as you're talking on the phone, you should be smiling, because the difference is when you're smiling and you're talking, you sound different, right? It's like,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? You sound different. So you have to break your face. You also have to change the energy. Something I had a sort of an epiphany moment years ago where I realized, wow, I love my daughter so much. I love my husband so much. I love my pets so much. I love my family so much. I love my friends so much. And then I realized something. What if I loved everybody as much as I loved them?
Clients included.
Why does it have to be different? Why
Yeah.
does my love for my clients or other people in the world, why does it have to be different? Why do I have to limit that? So what I actually do is when I'm with clients or with people I'm meeting, I visually can take my love, okay,
Yeah.
and I expand it out to include the people that are around me in it. And I truly feel it. I absolutely feel it. And the clients feel it. You know, my conversion rate with clients is like ridiculous. I can pretty
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
in and get anything I want, right?
Yep.
But because I'm honestly there authentically to serve those clients and do what is best for them always first, never for me. I'm not thinking about commission. I'm not thinking about what this is going to do for my bank. I'm thinking about what is best for them in the moment. How do we help them build wealth? Is this the right time for them to sell? Should they rent this and buy another property? How do we solve their problems, right? So I think the idea of this is part of NLP, and at the higher level of using energy is understanding we're energetic beings and you can expand your energy out to include other people, right?
Well, I want to touch on something that you said a couple minutes ago, where many agents going into especially luxury listings, many agents take a lot of time to study the property, study the location, study the area. They want to know exactly how many feet it is and how many bedrooms and how many bathrooms. And they want to walk in and be able to know like they were basically the ones who built the house. Whereas you've kind of flipped the script and you've spent more time studying the client than you have the property almost. And I think that's an important thing to highlight.
Yeah. And I would say it's both. It's important to do both, right?
Yeah.
So it's studying both. So the NLP part of it, you need to mirror and match, right?
Yeah.
So I'll give an example. Something I always
Please.
teach our agents is, okay, so we're sitting down at the table. We will go through, we want the client to help price the property, right?
Yep.
So we price a lot of unique properties, so stuff that's not easy to price. So we're doing price ranges. But let's say we're pricing something that's in a residential area. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you know, brick, 2-car garage. We know where it sits.
Yep.
So we take the 3 most recent sales, we print the photos as well, right? We've got things highlighted on the page, how many days on market, what it listed for, what it sold for, and we'll take it and we go, okay, Mrs. Seller, here is property A around the corner.
Yep.
And it sold 30 days ago for this. We slide it across the table. Here it is. Here's the photos. And it was listed for $998, sold for $970. And then here's property B. And this sold, here you go, it's listed $998 and sold for $980. And here's this property here. It's also like yours, just, you know, it didn't have as many updates. $998, sold for $950. And then we have yours. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what do you believe your home is worth after looking at these 3 comparables, right?
Yep.
So the idea is you're getting them involved in the process, right? So your sales consultant versus like telling them,
This is how
right?
much you can sell your house for.
Yeah. Selling is not telling, right?
Yep.
So that's one way of handling price. So the idea is they'll say, well, I think it's this, right? Based on that. They then get into a place of being a little bit more reasonable. But if they say, okay, I think it's 1.2, and they lean back and they put their hands over their chest like this, right? We also teach our agents, look, when they do this is like, it's over. Like they're defensive, right?
Yeah.
So the goal now becomes ask questions until you get their arms down, right? So it's like, okay, so walk me through how you get to the price of 1.2 compared to these 3 properties that would be seemingly comparable. So then they put their hands down, and as they start to tell you why, they come forward, right? And then they put their hands on the table, and you get them to a place where now they're open. So it's being very cognizant of their body language, right?
Yeah.
As they're doing everything. And one of the big things we teach is essentially lead, so follow, lead. Okay.
Yep.
So if the client is sitting there and let's say they're leaning back, right? So you're sitting down at the table and they're leaning back. So you wait a couple seconds and you lean back, right? So that's one. So that's a follow.
Mhm.
And then let's say now that they lean forward and they put their arms on the table. So you wait a couple seconds and then you would do the same thing. You lean forward and that's a follow, right? So that was now a follow. And now you want to do a lead, right? You want to try to lead to see if you have them in rapport, right? So
Okay.
now you could do something like this and you wait to see if the client will follow. If the
Yep.
client does the same kind of movement, you know now you have them in rapport and now you have them in trust and now that they're going to listen to you, right? But until
Absolutely.
you have them in rapport and trust, they will not listen to you. They're not going to take direction from you until you have them in rapport and trust. And that's a big mistake. So it's understanding how that works. So the other big thing with NLP, sorry, did you want to say something?
No, just keep going. This is going to roll right into my next question of DISC, but you're on a roll right now.
Okay. So the big thing with NLP is this, okay? Simple way to tell, all right, because this is really big with how you present information to a client.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's three major ways that a client will process information. So they have like a preference to the way that they remember things and process. So one, they look up. That is visual. Okay, it means they process visually their memory.
Yep.
The second is auditory. They can learn and process really well through their hearing, right? Third is kinesthetic. So it means they touch, they feel, right?
Yep.
So someone who's a visual person will say, I see, right? I see that, right? Auditory, I hear you, right?
Okay.
I'll use that one a lot, right?
Yeah.
Or a kinesthetic, I feel this way, I feel,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So those are hints that the client gives you about who they are. But the biggest way to figure it out is to say to the client, okay, how old's your roof? How old's your furnace? How old's your AC? How old's this? How old's that? And as they're trying to remember things, watch where their eyes go, right?
Okay.
So if I said to you, how old's your dog?
I'd say 8 years old.
Okay. Where was the last place you traveled to?
Mexico.
Okay. So when you answered that, you looked up and to the side.
I don't have a dog. That's why I looked nowhere when I answered that.
Yeah, it was like I couldn't, that's why I didn't even comment on that one.
Yeah.
So basically you look up and to the side, right? So it tells us your visual and your auditory.
Okay.
So would you say that's correct for you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So the idea of this is that, okay, if I have an offer that comes in, right?
Yep.
If I go and present the offer to a visual or a kinesthetic person over the phone, right?
Yep.
I tell them over the phone, even though they're visual or kinesthetic,
Yep.
they have now missed at least half the details that I said, right?
Totally.
So we had this happen in a situation. A team agent and I were on the phone. It was a divorce. Husband and wife were driving in two different cars. We were under time pressure from the buyer agent that had sent it over with quick irrevocable. So we're on the phone, we're talking to the clients, we gave them the information, right?
Yep.
They didn't want to do anything with the offer. A week later, we referenced something in the offer and they said, you never told us that. Right?
I've had this happen.
Right. And
Totally.
so we said, well, we did actually tell you that. And anyway, long story, get off the phone. Jake and I spoke to each other. This was the agent and myself.
Yeah.
And I said, do we have DNA on that? And he's like, and I said, I'm going to say yes. And here's why. We knew that the clients were visual kinesthetic. And we went ahead and presented an offer through a phone. They missed half the details and didn't get it. And now it's just going to be a quick race to see who fires who first, right? We got fired. Yeah. So it's understanding, that's the higher level. Blaming the client, right? We could do that. We could blame the client, but that's the lower understanding. Once you understand, it's not the client's fault. It was our fault, right?
Well, and I've got examples that match exactly what you're saying, where I've gone through the offer top to bottom over phone, and I've sent it away for signatures, and it comes back, and then 3 days later they're asking me all these questions about, well, what's this and what's that? Now I'm thinking, well, did you not listen to the half-an-hour conversation that we had regarding this offer? And they might have, but it didn't click because, again, I was presenting it in an ineffective way.
That's right. And so it's just understanding when you're dealing with someone who's visual or kinesthetic, like visual you could do through Zoom. Kinesthetic, the best possible way, if possible, is to go print 2 copies, sit down with them, give them a pen, let them mark up their own copy, because the reality is they're not processing it properly. And as soon as they believe that you have mistelling them something, trust is broken, rapport is gone,
Totally.
and it's done. It's done.
100%.
You're not going to convince them otherwise. They'll never believe you, right?
Yep.
So I think that's super, super important to remember.
Oh, big time. Absolutely. I think all of those points kind of lead up to what I wanted to talk about next. And it'll be another acronym that I'm sure many viewers will want to look up. DISC, D-I-S-C, or DISC profile. The question is, actually, Jennifer, before I dive into the next question, do you want to first explain to everyone listening what DISC even is?
Yeah. So DISC profile is a test that it's based on the idea that there's 4 distinct personality types, okay?
Yep.
So there's D, which is a driver. So it's typically like your CEO, your entrepreneur. It's only about 3 to 6% of the population, so actually quite small. I is your second, that's an influencer. It's about, I think about 16 to 17% of the population. Again, not overly huge. And this is more influencer type. They like to talk a lot, right?
Social people.
They're highly social. Yeah. Then you get into your S. So I always think of these as like service people, right? High service. Very number one fear would be change. And this is the vast majority of the population. The largest percentage of the population sits in an S. So they will live in the same house for 28 years, go to the same job for 30 years, and they hate change, right?
Yep.
So social workers, teachers sit in an S, and then you have your C. So C is like conscientious. So C is like, I always talk about them being like a high filter. They have a million steps that they would put in if a normal person was to create a workflow, for instance, okay? So this would be like your accountant or your engineer. Even some teachers will have high C.
Yep.
So the idea of this is, before you go out to an appointment, again, going to LinkedIn, right, or their socials and finding out what do they do for a living, right? I want to know, are they a CEO entrepreneur? Because I'm likely dealing with a D.
Yep.
So how does a D want me to do a listing presentation? Get to the point. What is the price? What is the commission? When does it go up? How fast are you going to sell it?
Yeah. Give me the facts.
That's it. Just get it done. And then, by the way, with a D, you need to know where to look to see if you're talking too much, right? So NLP, quick NLP for a D, look down at their feet. The second that a D's foot starts to turn towards a door, they're done, okay? Stop talking, right? You're losing. Once you are talking over where their foot has now turned, you're finished, okay? So I, highly social, plan hours to be with them, right? If you tried to put them into an hour time slot, you are not going to get hired. Okay, take cake. Make sure that you've reached out before and said, hey, I'm going through Starbucks. What's your order? And I'm going to pick us up an apple pie. Let's sit down and spend 3 hours together. That is an I. Okay? Yeah. So S, What does an S want? S wants a lot of reassurance. Again, S needs a lot of time. S is also going to need some evidence, right? They
Yes.
do need some evidence. They don't need a whole bunch, not like a C, but they need a lot of evidence. They do need some stats, right? You've got to still put some statistics in there.
You're expecting them to change. You've got to be able to back it up.
Exactly. And they also would do well knowing the stats of the most of the population, what it's doing. So if you think of, you can also kind of look at that part of the population as a herd of sheep. Okay. Okay. So think of sheep, and sheep like to do what the other sheep are doing, right? So,
yes.
right. So this is what the other clients I have are doing. They're doing this.
You want to make sure that client's not going to feel like an anomaly working with you.
Right. So it's like, this is the listing paperwork that everyone signs in Ontario, right?
Yep.
This is regular Ontario listing agreement paperwork, right? It's to help people understand they don't have to be fearful. This is normal, right? We use a lot of normal. This is normal. Like when people say, oh my gosh, it has so many conditions. This is normal, right?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, the offer is so low. This is normal in this kind of market.
You've
right?
anchored that confidence.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is that you have to be confident, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be authentic. It has to be real confidence, but you have to be confident. You have to help them move forward. And these are the buyers who will put the offer in, right?
Yep.
Firm in a multiple offer situation, and then call you the next day going, I'm not going to bring the deposit check, right? Which, by the way, is a problem because legally that is a binding contract, and that's a whole other thing. So how do we work them out of that? Well, we help them understand from the beginning that they're going to experience this feeling. So what we do is we have a buyer bag that we bring the buyer when we first start working with them. Okay. So in the buyer bag is like, these are the steps that the buyer goes through. Isn't it great? Right. And here's a postcard. This is the emotional journey of a buyer. So the offer's accepted. Slide one. Yay! I'm so excited. This is amazing, right?
Yep.
Slide two, right? Oh my God, what have I done? Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to bring the check, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 3 is like, it's okay. I remember now because my realtor is here with me, reminding me about how I was excited because little Jimmy and Bobby were going to be out playing on my playground set while I was, preparing food in the kitchen. And now we were going to have extra space for them to have their own room, right?
Yep.
And then the last slide is 6 months later, everyone's happy. We're so grateful. Now the house is worth more money. But it's starting with that question with them when you're working with a buyer saying, hey, have you ever bought a pair of jeans or a car and then immediately regretted what you've done? Yeah, right.
Totally.
Exactly. And everyone does. So the truth is that even when you buy a house, most times people immediately after go, oh my gosh, what have I done? And I want you to know that when you experience those feelings, it's completely normal. And when it happens, I want you to reach out to me so I can help you walk through those feelings. We can go through it together so that it becomes the amazing, incredible experience that it's supposed to be.
Well, it's perfect. You've paved the path of how they're supposed to feel pretty much, right? You've given them the trail and this is how you're going to walk. And once they feel all of these feelings, it's like you've already reassured them through a postcard. You haven't even had to be the one who's been there. Through a postcard. Trust me, don't worry. Your feelings are normal. Just give me a call. We'll figure it out. It's perfect.
Yeah. And no one has done that in real estate. That is something that I created.
Totally agree with you. I've never seen it.
Right. Because I got so fed up in the multiple offer situations in the hot markets of having so many agents on the buy side try to come to us after going, my clients don't, right? I mean, we know how to negotiate our way through that legally, right? but the idea is we wanted to stop it from happening. So these are things that we do. We figured out ways to manage around things that happen more than once. So the idea is something happens negatively, right? It's like fix and then prevent, right?
Yeah.
It's like find a way to stop it from ever happening again. That's our plan.
How has understanding your own disc profile helped you excel in your career? And how can other agents leverage this self-awareness for success?
I think by understanding your disc, you understand what you're good at. So I'm going to take a stab here and say, you are a D.
I would probably agree with you. Yeah, I would agree
Have
with
you
you.
taken the disc?
I personally have, I'm gonna be honest with you,
Oh my,
Jennifer. When I went over the topics that we wanted to touch on today, NLP and disc, I spent last night researching the crap out of everything. And so a
that's
lot of the
amazing.
information that I'm able to share with you today is information that is very new to me myself.
Wow, that's so cool. Well,
Yeah,
I'm going to send you a disc profile. I'll text it through. Just shoot me
please
your
do.
number. Yeah, because I feel like it'll help you understand yourself. So I originally, when I started in the business, I was a DI, but I also
Okay.
have C.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm someone, I love systems and processes. I love the idea of like something that got me excited was reading the Kroc brothers book, right? So the founders of McDonald's. So the idea that like you have a system, right? Like they created a system and the understanding that by having the exact same time, the burger goes on the grill, for so many minutes on this side and that side and flips, and then the cheese and then the bun and then the toppings and then the paper, and it goes down the assembly line, right? That all of these things are done in a process and a system. Like
Yep.
you should see the back end of how our team works with checklists. The administrators have checklists, the agents have checklists. Everything is literally a checklist. I
Yep.
love it. So that's the C. Okay. The D is I don't like to be told what to do. Okay.
Yep.
I'm an entrepreneur, like in a really
Problem
big
with many
way.
agents.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have like a serial entrepreneurial mind. I'm constantly coming up with things to do. So
Yep.
it's also understanding, okay, I have to pick one or two and focus, right? Not allowing all the other ideas that I have to be noise and distract me from my main things. The I part, that sociable part, I feel like that's less than when I started, right?
Okay.
So the I, yeah, that's not as strong. And I think that's actually from being in the business for 10 years, why I've gone more to my C,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I would love to see yours though.
I would love to too, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because from what I read, I think that I would agree with you. D, probably some C a little bit as well. I think that you've got to have a little bit of C to be able to duplicate and scale, because you've got to have the systems in place. If you're just all D all the time, there's going to be things that slip through the cracks, right?
Yeah. Well, and you'll have I because you're doing a podcast, like you like to communicate and speak with people.
This is
So
very true.
that's
This is
going
the
to
part
be
of the
there
business that I love
too.
the most. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think yeah, you have to be like brutally honest with yourself when you do the disc. Some
Yep.
people are like, well, I don't want to be seen that way. So I'll just say, like, I'll mark that. No, just be brutally honest. So anyway, the whole point is when you're a D, what you are really good at is I'm gonna relate this to hunting. Okay.
Are you a
So
hunter?
no,
Okay.
not at
Me,
all.
me
I'm the
neither.
opposite of a hunter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But this is the easiest way to visualize it. Okay.
Okay.
So you are a hunter as a D. Okay. You go out and you shoot the deer. Okay. And
Yep.
you slap it over your shoulder and you bring it back. And then you throw it down in front of all the people that need to do the next step. Okay. So you're throwing it in front of the I's, the S's, and the C's that take it apart, right?
Yep.
They do all their things with it. They prepare the meal, right? They clean up afterwards. They organize things. They know where everything is, right? So
Yep.
that's the idea. So if you do a disc profile and you are a high I, a high S, a high C, then typically if D is not your strongest, you're going to, I feel, do better even on a team. So it's understanding, okay, based on my disc profile, where am I going to be best suited, right?
Yeah.
D's make excellent listing agents, like off the charts listing agents.
Yep.
I's, S, and C are very good service. If C's too high, it can be a challenge, like they can almost seem combative, right?
Okay.
Because they have this need for detail. So they have to have the I or the S higher than the C.
Okay.
There's a lot of nuances to this. Someone who's a C, really high C, probably wouldn't have interest in real estate.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, like I think they wouldn't be attracted to this career. But understanding again, like if you're going out to a listing appointment and you have looked up on LinkedIn and that CEO entrepreneur, you know it's going to be a short appointment. You know
Yeah.
you've got to show up and be your best. They dress to kill, most
Yep.
Ds, right?
Yep.
Okay. And I will also dress pretty well. Usually, they're usually fairly snappy dressed, but you need hours, right?
Yeah.
S,
That's fair.
they're going to dress comfortable. They wear comfortable shoes, right?
Yeah.
They wear comfortable clothes. So understanding that and understanding you need hours, you need some statistics. With a C, plan lots of time. And you need all of the data that you could possibly dig up. I
All the
mean,
extra
like
weird facts.
all of the data that you thought you needed, and then way more on top of that, right?
Yep.
Like, and even that probably isn't enough. And hours to answer all of their questions and go through the listing agreement, which they're probably going to want to modify, right?
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Particularly if they're also a lawyer. Those are the best.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've had one good one where I've basically had to draft my own multiple listing contract. And it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. The great thing now is Chat GPT. It's a lawyer. It's amazing the stuff that we've been able to draft using
What do you use ChatGPT for?
everything.
Break it down a little bit.
So I'll give an example. So I use it for case law to help me in situations where, let's say, another agent from a brokerage is posturing on something.
Yep.
Like we had one of our agents bought another brokerage's listing conditionally on financing. Okay. The clause we use says at the buyer's sole and absolute discretion in terms of their comfort with the financing, right?
Okay.
Whatever mortgage they got. So in this case, they were not comfortable with the terms of that the lender gave them. New terms had come out and they weren't happy with it. So they sent a mutual release to the listing agent, right?
Yep.
Normal, should be fine, should
Yep.
be mutual release signed, should get her deposit back, should be easy, right? Nope. They say wasn't done in good faith. And they say, so their broker gets involved, their lawyer gets involved from the other side saying, we're not giving the deposit back. Now, this is the first time ever in like thousands and thousands of deals this has ever happened, right?
Yep.
I'm like, this is crazy. So I go to Chat GPT and I just said, these are the circumstances of the situation.
Yeah.
In Ontario, please provide me the case law that would support the buyer's situation getting their mutual release and their money refunded, right?
Yep.
So it provides me with 3 different case law in Ontario that support my position. So I simply write a little thing, take the case law, we email it back over to the other side, hear nothing back, get the mutual release signed, and the deposit comes back, right? Because ultimately, when they look at that, they have no case, right?
For sure.
So
Absolutely.
it's amazing.
I totally agree. I'm the same way. I use it for everything I possibly can anyways, but drafting legally binding terms has been a big one, right? Because lots of times
100%.
in the past anyways, you're kind of left, praying to God that what you're, culminating or what you're putting together sticks, right? Whereas now you go to ChatGPT and, act like a lawyer. This is where I'm located. These are the circumstances. My buyer's trying to do this. Write me a legally drafting term that will bind this. And it does. And it's beautifully written. And it's like, I would have spent 3 hours trying to figure out a term that would have made sense for what I'm dealing with. Whereas ChatGPT did it in
Right?
35 seconds.
It's amazing. Well, and I think AI is changing, it's changing the world. And I think there's so many people that don't fully understand how fast, right? So
Well,
like
absolutely.
I pay very close attention to OpenAI, like listening to the CEOs of Google and all of these things. So looking at the next rollout of the new Chat GPT version, right, coming
Yep.
out. So my inside sales managing partner, Courtney, and myself started paying a computer engineer to work on an inside sales agent, right? So
Yeah.
we were building the stuff, and we had a computer engineering student as well. So we were building these agents, and we posted we we're getting ready to roll it out, and then a company from the UK reached out and said, "Hey, we're already doing this, right?
Yeah.
So why don't we get together?" So we ended up partnering with them. So now we actually have, like, the ads are done. So we create ads that now produce leads, that now we have a voice AI that calls through leads. It can actually call
Wow.
plus chats through. And this is all for realtors to start with. But truly, the opportunities, like for debt collection companies, like banking, like it's endless in the world. And this is something that we're super stoked about. So I honestly believe, like, if you're an agent and you're not paying attention to AI, you need to get on the AI bandwagon like ASAP,
For
right?
sure.
Or you won't exist in a year or two.
Do you think AI is going to eventually replace the human element in real estate, or do you see it more as a tool that's built to enhance it?
I so I think, like, based on the fact AI right now is at a PhD level, right? You know that.
Yep.
AI is doubling in intelligence about every 6 months right now. So soon it will be at the intelligence of Einstein, and we will eventually be at a level where we're like a mouse in comparison, right?
Yep.
So I feel like it's more like, what is a mouse to us, right? As
Okay.
long as it doesn't come into our home, it's fine, right? It's perfectly fine. Just stay outside.
Yeah.
So I don't see AI seeing us as like an issue,
Yeah.
right? So I see us continuing to sell real estate, just less of us, because AI isn't going to give a, you know,
Yeah.
I just don't think it's going to care about this level of stuff when there's so many other things that it will have interest in doing.
For
I
sure.
think it also, like, right now, it can't smell a house, so it can't smell, cat pee,
Yep.
marijuana. It can't
Good
determine if a
points.
house is level, right? Like,
Yep.
when you go in a house, you can't tell if the stairway is like this,
For
right?
sure.
You can't tell if there's a mold smell. Um, you can't hear necessarily, right? AI can't hear if there's a
Too much noise
stamping
upstairs,
factory,
too much noise downstairs. Yeah.
right? Like, you just don't, there's so many things that it can't do yet. But I do think that if you look forward into the future, if you haven't embraced it, clients are going to start to demand that their agents are using it, because it's working 24/7. It's capable of doing so much more than agents in terms of even the marketing side.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't think you'll exist if you're not using it. I
Oh,
don't.
I totally agree. I spent the past 6 months basically training my assistant because I ran into the same issue as you did before, where I was doing 75 homes a year for, a couple of years, thinking the more hours I put into the business, the more I would do. And then 2 years back to back, I'm doing 75 homes and I can't rent. Doing 75 homes as a solo agent, it's not a fun task. It's not, not really enjoying myself at this point. I'm working 14, 16-hour days on evenings and weekends. So as soon as I hired an assistant, that's when I was able to breach that 100 home mark. And then so to double down on that, I've spent the past 6 months training my assistant on AI and how she can be using AI to do her parts of the job. And now this one assistant is doing the job of 3 assistants. You know what I mean? Like she's the amount of things she's getting done in half the amount of time is incredible. So it's almost supercharged the back end of my business. And then I use it myself, right? So it's an incredible tool.
You should do a podcast with your assistant on what she's doing and actually show how she's leveraging that with her position, because that's huge, right?
I totally agree with you. Even since, because she was a realtor before, and then she left, she had a kid, and now she didn't really like the whole evenings, weekends, long hours, phone calls all the time. She'd rather do the back end stuff, which is perfect. She's amazing at it. But even bringing her on and walking her through the steps that eXp Realty has in place, because she's asking me these questions like, how do I do this? And how do I upload this? And how do I send it to conveyancing and this and that? And I'm letting her know, like, listen, half that stuff is taken care of. You literally just click this, you click that, you send this to that person, you tag this person in the email, and it's done. And she's like, mind blown at the fact that she's having to do, as the assistant, having to do a fraction of the job she was doing before, let alone not even touching AI, just with what EXP's put together, right? And now you sprinkle in some AI and it's just a whole different game.
Yeah, and that would be so incredibly valuable to teach that, right?
Totally agree.
There's so many agents that aren't using it yet. Even like, that's crazy. Like just asking, I've been into different offices and training them and just saying like, what AI are you using? And they're
Yeah.
like, none, right? They are using, of course, they just don't realize it, but they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, none, nothing, Zipto, right?
Yeah.
It's insane. I'm like,
It is.
wake up,
It's not new
right?
technology anymore.
No, but you think about like when the internet came out, right? There was literally headlines in the New York Times saying we're going to be like attacked by terrorists through the internet. Like
Yep.
people were resistant to using, right? Anything
For sure.
new and they get worried. So I look at it as, look, AI is here. It is incredibly intelligent. Elon Musk and all the incredibly intelligent people in the world do have concerns about it. So what I would say to you is you might as well jump on the bandwagon. However, be polite, be nice,
Yeah.
be kind, don't swear at it, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to go first if it decides to knock everybody off the planet.
For sure.
Now my husband's drilling. Welcome to my world. Can you hear that drilling?
Yeah,
He's literally drilling in the wall, like beside me now.
awesome.
Yeah, it's so good.
Okay, well, we have used up over an hour, which is fantastic. I always like to end things with a bit of a loaded question. I used to ask people what's the one golden piece of advice that they would share to everybody else. I think I like to, rather than asking what is the most important piece of advice that you want to share, is what's the most, or what would you consider to be one of the most impactful pieces of advice you've been given in your career? Loaded question.
Yeah, that's like one that you almost need time for though to think. Oh my
I
gosh.
had a couple different answers myself, because when I asked this question, of course, you yourself want to have an answer. If I had to boil it down, I think one of the top pieces of advice that I've been given so far in my real estate career would be take nothing personally. I think that was a big one for me because, of course, when I first got into it, I was just at the age where I had a lot of my friends buying houses too. But of course, I was a new agent. And if you're somebody buying a house, you 9 times out of 10 don't want to deal with an agent who's never sold a house before. You want to deal with somebody who's got some experience. And so when I first got into the game, I had a lot of my friends who I considered my close acquaintances using other realtors to purchase their homes. And I couldn't figure out why. And I took it very personally. You know what I mean? I felt like these people don't want to be my friends anymore because they're using another realtor. And then that's me mixing business and personal. Whereas as soon as I started understanding that this is all business and has nothing to do with personal relationships, as soon as I started taking nothing personally, everything started to make more sense.
Yeah, that's so true. I think I don't think there's really been like any advice from a human being that I've taken that's actually improved
Dog,
the
cat.
business. I would say more, yeah, really. No, I think it's more like God advice, like spiritual advice, right?
Okay.
So I would say more if someone wants actionable, right, it would be that law of reciprocity, give unto others, right, 100-fold, it will be returned to you 100-fold. I believe in serving others first. I literally give without expectation of return from anybody, right?
Yep.
I give to everyone and don't expect anything back, right?
Big one.
When you are capable of doing that and serving at a high level, your world will change. Your mind will be blown by all the magical, incredible miracles that happen for you every day. So I think it's not so much what advice people give you. I think you have to learn to trust your own intuition and your own path, right?
Be okay with providing value and expect nothing back.
Yeah. And everyone's on their own journey. So if you can find someone who can mentor you, who's where you want to be, that's awesome. But it doesn't also mean that their journey will be your journey, right?
Yep.
I actually think all the answers are inside of us, that we can have all the answers, like through meditation, through connection inside. I believe all the answers come, right? So yeah, there's very few people that actually rely on for.
Well, and that's fair. Like you said, everybody's journey is different, right? I had a talk with another agent the other day who pointed out, everybody's hard is different. Whereas, a marathon runner who runs 5 miles, that's not hard. But for somebody else who ran 5 miles, that could be extremely hard. And so everybody's hard is different.
Yeah.
You've got to kind of tailor your approach to how they're going to receive it.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's what it is. And no one can really know what is intended for you except you. And it will be revealed to you, right?
Yep.
So that's the thing. You may get like little messages from other people as you go through your life and you go, oh, wow, that's actually what I was thinking, right? Like you get those like a confirmation of something you were thinking or feeling, like, oh, you're on the right path.
Yep.
But understand someone else can't, you have to be careful of taking advice from other people, right? If you're simply going through life coming from a place of like love and serving of others, truly, your life will be amazing.
Absolutely agree. Extremely well said. Jennifer, if I'm a buyer, seller, or fellow agent listening in at home, in the car, at the office, what would be the best way for them to connect with you?
Best way to connect is through my cell to text me. So I'm a texter. And that was the last thing, 289-879-7213. So always remember this. You ask a client or anyone around you, what is the best way to communicate with you? Text, email, or phone call. Whatever they say, do that only. And think about yourself. If you're a texter and someone calls you, how do you feel? If you're a phone call person and someone keeps texting you, how do you feel? Email, same thing. So again, remember, do unto others as they would have done to them, not you, right? That's the highest level of service.
Well, I think that's amazing. Jennifer, thanks again for joining us today. This was another extremely impactful show. Again, I'm your host, Trevor Bigg. Tune in next time for another exciting episode focused on delivering actionable advice delivered from straight from the top 1%. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Collaborate, where we're not just talking about success, we're building it. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe and never miss out on the insights that could take your real estate career to the next level. And remember, this is a space for the elite. If you're ready to level up and become part of a global network of top-performing agents, join us at the Global Group for exclusive tools, resources, and opportunities to collaborate with the best in the business. I'm Trevor Bigg, and remember, if you haven't been invited to this show yet, you need to grind harder, hustle smarter, and get those numbers up, because this is a space reserved for the elite.